Characteristics of ancient African societies. Social structures. Ancient African societies were often organized into clans or tribes, with kinship playing a crucial role in social organization. Leadership was typically vested in elders or chiefs, who were responsible for decision-making and conflict resolution. Gender roles were often defined, with men typically engaging in hunting and warfare, while women managed the household and agricultural tasks. Economic systems. Economies were primarily based on agriculture, with crops such as millet, sorghum, and yams being staples. Trade networks were established, facilitating the exchange of goods such as gold, salt, and textiles across regions. Cultural practices. Griots were highly respected oral historians, storytellers, and musicians. They were responsible for passing down the empire's history, genealogy, and cultural practices through oral traditions. Art and music played significant roles in religious and social ceremonies, often reflecting the community's values and beliefs. Spiritual beliefs were diverse, often involving ancestor worship. Rise and fall of the kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Historical factors for rise. The introduction of trans-Saharan trade routes facilitated wealth accumulation through the trade of gold and salt. Kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai had lots of gold but needed salt to preserve food, add flavors, and so on. North Africans above the Sahara had salt but wanted gold to use as money. This resulted in people crossing the Sahara Desert to trade salt and gold. Strategic geographic locations allowed these kingdoms to control trade routes and resources effectively. Strong leadership and military organization contributed to the expansion and consolidation of power. Historical factors for fall. Internal strife and succession disputes weakened central authority, leading to fragmentation. External pressures from rival kingdoms and emerging powers, such as the Moroccan invasion of Songhai in 1591. Economic decline due to over-reliance on trade and failure to adapt to changing trade dynamics. Ghana. A rise of Ghana. As early as 350 BC, West Africans began using iron tools, allowing for greater food supplies and population growth. More efficient farming eventually allowed for labor specialization, or the division of jobs and skills in a society. In 300 AD, the Soninke founded a kingdom between the Niger and Senegal rivers. Each clan comprised of families who specialized their role in society. They expanded their power into an empire, conquering and enslaving the groups they defeated. Ghana's ascension to the throne was patrilineal. Fall of Ghana. The trans-Saharan route shifted, bypassing Ghana. Climate changes such as droughts and desertification led to fertile soil becoming infertile. Internal conflicts and civil wars weakened Ghana. Outsiders like the Berbers attacked Ghana. Mali. Rise of Mali's small kingdom struggled for power when Ghana fell and was taken over by Mali. In 1203, in the ruins of Ghana, Sumanguru ruled over these kingdoms, including the Malinke people. Sundiata led a rebellion alongside Malinke kings. Mansa Sundiata consolidated the Empire of Mali by 1235. Under Mansa Sundiata, Mali expanded even larger than the Kingdom of Ghana, controlling the gold-producing regions and trade routes. Mansa Sundiata ruled with an assembly of kings who created a set of laws dealing with social classes, property rights, and personal conduct. Ascension to the throne was patrilineal, meaning children of the father, but some later kings were matrilineal, meaning children of the mother. A Mali at its height, Mansa Musa led Mali to its most prosperous age. He embraced Islam for his empire. In 1324, Mansa Musa led a caravan, a large traveling group, on a Hajj, a religious journey, to Mecca. He brought 12,000 officials and slaves, and 80 camels carrying gold. Mansa Musa spent so much gold in Cairo that he unbalanced the Egyptian economy for years. Mansa Musa returned to Mali with Muslim scholars and artists, and his trip also increased trading and wealth. Timbuktu was the capital of Mali and the home of Mansa Musa. Muslims from all over West Africa came to study at the universities in Timbuktu. Songhai broke away from Mali and replaced it as the most powerful kingdom in West Africa. In the 1400s, Mansa Musa's successors began losing control over Mali. In 1464, Ali Bir began rule under the new Songhai Empire. He controlled the trans-Saharan trade routes. King Askia Muhammad, the greatest Songhai ruler, appointed Muslim judges, had a legal system based on the Quran, and divided the land into provinces. Ascension to the throne was patrilineal, meaning it was passed down to the children of the father. Both Islam and traditional African spiritual beliefs were practiced. Slaves were important to the economy. Main sources were prisoners of war, debtors, and criminals. This practice was non-racial. Laws were written in Arabic and based upon the Quran. Songhai scholars used Arabic when they wrote new books on law, medicine, biology, agriculture, ethics, and more. Askia Muhammad's sons competed for power upon his death, resulting in civil struggles. Climate changes brought droughts and desertification, where fertile soil becomes infertile. In 1591, Moroccan soldiers invaded Songhai to gain control of the trade routes, the gold, and to expand their territory. Moroccan soldiers had an advantage: gunpowder. After the invasion, Songhai's cities collapsed, and the last great West African empire fell. Life south of the Sahara kingdoms and cultures. Kanem Bornu, located in present-day Chad, it was a major center for trade and Islamic scholarship. The kingdom thrived on trade routes connecting North Africa to the Central Sudan, dealing in slaves, ivory, and textiles. The introduction of Islam in the 11th century significantly influenced its culture and governance. Congo, situated in Central Africa, it was known for its complex political structure and trade networks with Europeans. The kingdom was ruled by a king named the Manikongo, who exercised both political and spiritual authority. The Manikongo had a council of nobles and officials who helped govern the kingdom's provinces. The kingdom was divided into smaller administrative units, headed by provincial governors who were responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining order, and upholding the king's authority. Society was stratified, with distinct social classes including nobles, commoners, and slaves. The Congo Kingdom engaged in trade with the Portuguese, exchanging goods such as copper and ivory for firearms and textiles. Christianity was introduced in the late 15th century, leading to significant cultural changes. The Portuguese colonization eventually brought diseases, weapons, and cultural influences that helped to the downfall of the Congo Empire. The slave trade, which began in the 16th century, further weakened the empire by draining it of its resources and manpower. Great Zimbabwe, known for its impressive stone ruins. The most famous of these structures is the Great Enclosure, a massive stone wall that surrounds the city of Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe was a center of trade and political power in southern Africa. The economy was based on cattle herding, agriculture, and trade, particularly in gold and ivory. The kingdom was also known for its advanced ironworking techniques, which allowed it to produce high-quality tools and weapons. The kingdom was ruled by a monarch who was believed to have been chosen by the gods. The monarch was advised by a council of elders. The decline of Great Zimbabwe in the 15th century is attributed to overgrazing, resource depletion, and changing trade routes. Additionally, the ruling elite, who controlled the city and its resources, faced internal power struggles and external pressures from neighboring groups. Swahili. The Swahili kingdom was characterized by its diverse cultural influences, blending elements of African, Arab, Persian, and Indian traditions. Swahili architecture was distinctive for its coral stone buildings with intricately carved wooden doors, reflecting a fusion of African and Islamic design elements. The Swahili kingdom was organized into city-states governed by local rulers known as sultans. society was stratified, with distinct social classes based on occupation and wealth. The decline of the Arab slave trade in the 19th century led to a decline in the prosperity of the Swahili cities. Internal conflicts, including power struggles between clans and ruling families, also led to the kingdom's decline. The Swahili coast was also affected by environmental factors, such as changes in ocean currents and weather patterns, which affected the fishing industry and food supply. The slave trade. Slavery existed in many West and Central African societies long before the transatlantic slave trade began. Prior to European involvement, Muslim traders had already established the trans-Saharan slave trade by the 9th century, which saw African captives being traded across the Sahara to North Africa and beyond. Additionally, Africans were involved in slave trading with the Middle East and India through the Indian Ocean trade routes. The primary drivers of the slave trade within early African empires were local warfare and political maneuvering. Individuals enslaved during conflicts served as a vital source of unfree labor. Additionally, West Africans acquired and expressed wealth in terms of dependent people such as slaves, rather than ownership of property. The addition of Portugal into the slave trade in 1441 and the slavery requirements of the Americas created an ever-expanding demand for slaves. Some African states exploited this demand, manipulating their judicial systems to condemn individuals to slavery for economic benefits. The slave trade of the early African empires with the Middle East and Far East, and later with Portugal and the Americas, led to significant demographic changes, with many Africans forcibly removed from their homelands. Societies were destabilized, as the loss of population affected labor forces and social structures. In areas hardest hit by the slave trade, women might be thrust into roles previously occupied by men due to the shortage of males. Bantu migrations. Reasons for migration. Environmental changes such as droughts and soil depletion prompted groups to seek more fertile lands. The search for new agricultural opportunities and resources led to the expansion of Bantu-speaking peoples. Social factors, including conflict with neighboring groups, also contributed to migration patterns. Impact of migrations. The spread of Bantu languages and cultures across sub-Saharan Africa, influencing local populations. Introduction of new agricultural techniques and ironworking skills, enhancing food production and tool-making. Formation of new social structures and political organizations as Bantu groups settled in various regions.